Hello everyone. Thanksgiving morning rose over Washington with a soft gold glow, spilling across the Obama family's home like a quiet blessing. The leaves outside drifted in shades of amber and red, carried gently by the November wind. But inside, something far more delicate stirred, a tiny, rhythmic breath from a newborn sleeping near the fireplace. For the first time in their lives, Barack and Michelle Obama were spending Thanksgiving not as parents of two grown daughters, but as brand new grandparents. And though the house smelled of cinnamon, cornbread, and roasted sweet potatoes, every familiar aroma faded behind the overwhelming presence of the newest member of their family, Malia's baby girl. But beneath this joy, there were unspoken fears and memories that had followed them for years, and what came next would reveal emotions none of them were expecting. Malia Obama had always carried her strength quietly. Growing up under the unforgiving glare of the political spotlight had carved resilience into her, shaping her into a woman who treasured privacy more than fame. Motherhood, however, revealed a different layer of her spirit, softer, gentler, rooted in a return to simplicity. The sleepless nights no longer bothered her. The predictable rhythm of feeding schedules and tiny socks brought her peace. And gathering with her family for the first major holiday since her daughter's birth made everything feel complete. As she watched her father humming to the baby, and her mother arranging decorations with Sasha, she realized this wasn't just Thanksgiving. This was the first page of her child's story. But behind her calm smile was a question she carried quietly. Could she raise her daughter without the world intruding the way it once did on her? For Barack Obama, the moment he first lifted his granddaughter felt like an emotional collision he never saw coming. He had spent years making decisions that shaped nations, speaking to world leaders, facing crises head-on. But nothing compared to the moment that tiny hand curled around his finger. Her warmth spread into his chest, breaking open emotions he didn't know he had buried. "Look at her," he whispered that morning, eyes soft in a way rarely seen by cameras. "She's perfect." And from that moment, he barely let her go. Michelle teased him for hogging the baby, but no one missed the quiet truth. Barack had stepped into a role he had secretly dreamed of for years. But beneath the laughter, he wondered if history might try to shape this little girl the way it shaped his daughters, and whether he could shield her from that burden. Michelle Obama, always the grounding force of the family, felt a different kind of fullness bloom in her heart. Motherhood had been the role she embraced most fiercely, guiding her daughters through childhood with grace, discipline, and unwavering love. But becoming a grandmother softened her in ways she hadn't expected. She brushed the baby's hair with her fingertips, adjusted tiny bows, and whispered, "Welcome to the world, sweet girl," with a tenderness that carried decades of wisdom. When she opened the box of keepsakes she had saved, the tiny sweater, the knitted booties, the little socks Malia once wore, her voice trembled. "And now they're hers," she said. It was a moment that made her realize how quickly time had passed, and how love always found its way into the next generation. Not Sasha's transformation was just as touching. The family's creative soul, she had always been full of warmth and whimsy. But meeting her niece shifted her heart in an instant. She showed up with handmade gifts, a children's book she illustrated, and a playlist of lullabies. Throughout the day, she hovered eagerly, learning to swaddle, practicing how to hold the baby properly, whispering promises of the adventures they'd one day share. "I'm going to be the cool aunt," she said with a grin. "The one who teaches you how to paint and dance." But behind her enthusiasm was something deeper, a new responsibility she embraced more naturally than anyone expected. As sunset painted the sky, the Thanksgiving table glowed under candlelight. Platters of turkey, herb stuffing, mashed potatoes, and Michelle's sweet potato casserole surrounded them, but the true centerpiece was the bassinet placed beside Michelle's chair. They took turns holding the baby, smiling at every small stretch or wiggle, their hearts tethered to the tiny miracle breathing softly beside them. When Barack asked everyone what they were thankful for, Sasha spoke about new beginnings. Michelle gave thanks for health, family, and watching her daughters become extraordinary women. Barack looked at his granddaughter and whispered, "I'm thankful for the chance to see the world through her eyes." And when Malia finally spoke, wiping away a tear, she said she was thankful for love, the kind strong enough to carry her into this new chapter. But no one knew that the words she didn't speak weighed heavily on her heart, the fear of raising a child in a world that once treated her like a symbol instead of a person. After dinner, they gathered in the living room, the fireplace casting warm shadows across the walls. Barak cradled the baby again, humming an old lullaby he used to sing to Malia and Sasha. Michelle rested a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Can you believe this?" He shook his head slowly, smiling. "She's the future." They spoke about traditions, names, and the kind of world they hoped this little girl would inherit. Sasha sketched the moment quietly from the couch, capturing the rare stillness of their family in a single drawing she planned to frame someday. For a while, time seemed to stop. The noise of the world faded. The pressures of legacy dissolved. There was only love, the soft glow of the fireplace, and a baby dreaming peacefully in her grandfather's arms. But even in that perfect moment, one truth lingered like an echo. The Obamas had lived through the harshest spotlight imaginable, and they knew how deeply it could cut. Their greatest wish now was that this child would never have to carry that weight. As night settled gently over the home, Barak placed a final kiss on his granddaughter's forehead. In that hushed moment, he whispered words no one else heard, a quiet confession from a man who had spent his life serving the world: family is where the future begins. And as the baby slept, surrounded by warmth and generations of love, the Obamas embraced the next chapter of their story, not as a former first family, but simply as a family bound by memories, hope, and a tiny heartbeat that reminded them what truly matters.